Chapter 12 is on the future. What can we expect in years to come?
When it comes to futures, there's just a couple of things that we can see coming that are very important. The first is organizations need to use their identity management information in order to drive their business processes, in order to reduce their costs, and in order to improve the customer experience. Customer experience and the digital transformation is definitely coming, and organizations need to use their identity management infrastructure to improve that experience that their customers will have. Coming onto the website, going into their stores, just doing business with them.
What should we be preparing for?
There's a number of trends. The one is federated authentication. Most businesses need to be able to federate to business partners. So if I'm allowing a business partner to access my facilities, I don't want to have to type their usernames into my facilities. I want to use their registration processes. So federation is going to be very important. Another one is secure data sharing. We're seeing that more and more organizations want to share data with those external to the organization. It could be a partner, it could be a customer, but it must be done securely. If the securities are not around that, the organization is going to find that they're going to be losing intellectual property. The third area is data analytics. We're seeing more and more happening in this space now, and that can be from a security point of view, monitoring a network to see what normal communications is. It could be analyzing big data so that we can look at trends in our sales activities, for instance. So there's a number of areas where data analytics are becoming exceedingly important, and some of those can be very large data groups. So telcos, for instance, they deal with huge data repositories that have got to be treated properly. We're going to see more and more benefit coming out of the data analytics space.
What consumer data issues do you see as most important?
There's a couple of areas that are important, and we need to make sure that we don't break the rules going forward. First is on data privacy. Most jurisdictions now have some pretty stringent rules on what you can do with personally identifiable information. Number one, you can't collect more than you need. You can't collect data just because you might need it in the future. You can't share data for a purpose other than that for which it's been collected. So if somebody's given you information to, for instance, set up a bank account, you can't take that information and give it to the insurance department within the bank. That would be breaking the rules. In terms of protecting that data, that's paramount. So any privacy legislation says you must protect that data. And then there's giving access to the data. Like in most jurisdictions, Western jurisdictions now, if a user wants to get access to the data you're keeping on them, you must give them access to that data. And if they identify an error with it, you've got two options. You can correct the error, or you can annotate the data. You can't just do nothing. So there's some pretty stringent privacy laws now where it comes down to protecting data that's most important. And then there's the data ownership issues. And this is an interesting area because most people don't realize how valuable their data is to the organizations that are keeping it. So for instance, a telephone company records your phone number when you make a phone call. They record the number which you called. They record the starting time and the end time. Who owns that data? The telco would say they own that data. And agreed, telcos need to do network planning based on that data. But to do that, they should be de-identifying that data. Another area that's important is retail. Retail, and most of us now are really observing what some of the larger retailers are doing in terms of collecting our purchasing data and then doing something with it. And I think that's a good model. If we look at the retail organizations, they are providing some recompense to their customers via specials that they give them, via targeted promotions. we're seeing that a lot of people really appreciate that and feel that they're happy to give their data, provided the retail organization doesn't abuse it. One area that's a big issue at the moment is in medical. The acute care facilities and primary care facilities have not done a good job, in my opinion, in properly managing medical data. Most GPs would say they own your medical record. Well, in fact, they don't. You own that record. The GP must put in place mechanisms to enable consent management when it comes to what people can do with that data. You have control.
What technology advances do we need to prepare for?
We're going to see increased use of biometrics. And this is going to be facial recognition, for instance. We're going to see that the cameras on our devices are used more and more in order to authenticate us to facilities. So for instance, if I'm coming into the Department of Motor Vehicles to get information on my driving record, it's very easy for that access to turn on the camera and verify that it is indeed me. They have a picture from my driver's license sitting there. So we're going to see facial recognition becoming a lot more important. We're also going to see voice recognition becoming more heavily used. The devices that we have coming on the market now have some pretty impressive capabilities when it comes to voice recognition, and using it not only to manage the device itself, but to manage access to resources. There's already government services that use voice recognition in order to verify your identity when you go in to access a particular service. And using the other facilities of mobile devices, such as the accelerometer that gives us the gesture-based authentication, we're going to see more and more of that, because nobody wants to be typing in a password when they come to access systems from their mobile phone. The risk-based authentication is becoming very important. So most organizations now will, before they give you access to a protected resource, will do a number of things. Number one, they'll want to verify who you are. And that verification could change depending upon whether you're coming in from a corporate resource or whether you're coming in from a mobile device, from an external location. It might also change depending on what time of day you come in. If it's during business hours, you'll get a different level of access than if it's after hours. So this risk-based authentication is one area where we're seeing organizations really tighten up on the security in terms of access to their protected resources. Then in the networking space, we're seeing a lot of changes happening there. The software-defined networking is changing how computer networking occurs. In the past, most organizations established a computer network, they put a firewall on the perimeter, and they could control access to and from that network. We've gone beyond that now, and networks need to be a lot smarter in determining who is actually on the network, what access rights do they have to the various protected resources, and the network determining and deciding on what access is going to be granted. In terms of some of the new technology, we're seeing a lot about blockchain at the moment. Blockchain is the technology behind the Bitcoin facility, and it's been recognized as lots of potential for blockchain. Not maybe as many as the popular press would suggest, but definitely anywhere where we have a distributed ledger capability, a requirement, where we have people doing things in distributed areas that we need to record. So blockchain is going to have an interesting future. In fact, we're all going to have an interesting future. It's going to be quite a wild ride.